Hello?
You have to unmute.
No, it's not muted. Bob, are you there? Hello?
Do you need to share your screen?
I will. Not yet.
Okay. I guess he hasn't started it yet quite.
Mm-mm. Probably not.
Yeah, it's probably gonna make some remarks at the beginning.
Yeah.
You have 2 more minutes anyway before it starts.
Yeah.
Okay, focus on what you're gonna say. You need to have a really strong start.
Okay.
unmute.
Yeah, they have the new icon. That
Hi, everybody. Hi, Leslie. Can you hear me?
I can. Doesn't look like a quorum.
Well, it's working on a quorum. We are having technical difficulties as usual at the town chambers. Oh, I'm not supposed to say anything critical about anything ever.
That's too bad.
I know, but yes, despite the perfect everything going on, we have Nan. Nan is here.
I'm
Nan,
here. Hello.
Well, then all the critical people for geology are there.
yes, yes. So there are 1, 2, 3 people in attendance if we count Nan's attendance. The problem is that, oh, yes, now Gary's on. So shall I
Yeah.
put on my video? So
Interesting. I don't see Gary on here.
You have a laptop?
But
with you?
but oh my God, talk about geology. What about the events in Turkey? Wow.
What?
the events at where?
If you guys get
Turkey.
a laptop, you have the quorum.
Turkey had a 7.9 and a 7.6.
Oh, yeah, 7.9
Yeah, Turkey
earthquake.
had a 7.9.
Yeah, they're falling apart over there. There are thousands dead. It's very sad.
1,000?
1,600.
They think they're getting it. Nan's got a better number than I have.
Well, plug
Is
It's
Nan
really
there?
upsetting.
Nan, can you hear us? Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear
Are you
me?
at home?
But I'm at home. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. You're a little, you're not competing with Rita very well.
open. You have the quorum. You're good.
Okay.
Is Rita at your house, Nan?
No,
Rita's at the,
Man, I don't hear
sign
Rita.
in if you can.
yeah.
Right now they're saying 2,300 dead in Turkey.
Yeah,
The number will go up a lot.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sure those buildings.
and that's not even counting what's happening in Syria.
Oh, there's Jeremy and Rita and Dana and Nan.
Yeah, I'm surprised they didn't feel it in like Israel. They said, it sort of stopped at Syria. That's a huge earthquake.
Okay,
though.
somebody's recording this. Is that Rita? Okay, somebody's recording. It could be Jeremy. So I think the audience should, the peanut gallery should cease.
Okay, who is at the dais?
Okay,
I can't.
We cannot see Gary, despite having gotten on. We can't see you.
Wait, are Chet and
Oh,
Bob?
there you are. You got it. I'm going to turn my volume off.
Mary, where are you?
I'm in the dais. I mean,
Okay,
I'm in the peanut gallery.
in the peanut gallery. Oh, there's Gary. I see Gary.
okay, there, and just to let you know, there is a, there is a laptop.
You need to either mute yourself. Okay. Stop video and mute.
Okay. I don't see Chet or Bob. Are they there? Hmm.
Are you muted? No.
Mm-mm.
Did they figure it out?
You're on.
They're on.
Yeah, you may have trouble with having that sound on. I've got it on. I'm muted, see. So I'm not. Something on that is. There it is. Well, I'm gonna be quiet.
Well, if you turn your speaker, Gary, if you turn your speaker down, that might make it.
Technically, there is a forum and everyone's connected.
I'm still not ready.
Probably we have to put, all of them on mute, except for the person that's talking, so we don't get the echo.
So that would only be Sharon Hamlet who bothered. Put yourself on mute, although you don't have to put yourself on. And then Talon put you.
Jeremy, can you hear me?
Nan, can you unmute yourself? And then you'll have a quorum.
I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Perfect.
Mary's
No,
muted.
Mary's muted.
Who is fixing the IT problem?
Mhm.
Who is?
I don't know. No.
Well, very small. Gorilla is spelled Gorilla. It's the great, one of the great apes. On page 5, I think it is, you had the gorilla, which is a terrorist or patriot, depending on who you are. But the gorilla in the closet is
Correct spelling, please.
Gorilla. That sort of thing.
He aped it.
All those in favor of accepting the corrected minutes, say aye.
Aye.
So they are corrected.
Nan,
Hello, I can barely hear you. Did you call my name? Hello? Hello? Bob, can you hear me?
They're calling a vote for the minutes, Nan.
Oh, for the minute. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you had, okay, you've done roll call. I'm, okay. Uh, Okay, Mary, who was speaking? The voice is so faint, I can't even hear.
Chet,
And that was Chad. Needs to speak directly into the microphone.
Went to Turkey. Patients. We did not hold it. He came back with a lot of information. And it was his knowledge of the damage that a lot of this geological come up with the figures that the town council asked us to come up with as to how close a building could be constructed in Portola Valley to a fault. And he came up with the idea that no building should be constructed closer than 100 feet from a fault that is only approximately known. But if the rupture trace is known for well, then we could build at close to 50. But the interesting that what's happening today has happened many times in the past and has affected Portola Valley.
Very well. Were you here?
And are you with us now?
yes, she can hear.
And has prepared a PowerPoint presentation for us, and I will turn the meeting over to her if she is ready.
Are you ready?
Okay.
She's working at it.
Oh, okay.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you, Nan.
Okay, but I cannot hear Chet. That's the problem.
He's turning the meeting over to you.
He's turning it over to you.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen. And
We cannot hear her.
here.
We can see her.
Can you see from beginning?
I can see your slide,
Can you see my screen?
but it's not on the main screen.
It's not. So you cannot see my screen? This is not going to work.
You can see your screen. I will turn up your volume on my computer. This is intense. Okay, there. Speak, Nan.
Okay, I'm speaking. Who can hear me? Can you hear me in the schoolhouse?
Yes.
Okay, Gary's muted. Bob, can you hear me?
You hear me then?
Can Bob hear me?
The answer is no, Bob. You have to speak loud enough because now my computer is this hub, believe it or not.
This is the microphone. This is the.
That's not working. The microphones are not working for into my computer.
This is not good.
Oh,
Mary, do you want to sit up?
You have to unmute yourself.
You know how to do it?
I tell you what.
Here we go. Can you hear me now?
Oh, there you are. Okay, Gary, can you unmute?
yep, I'm unmuted and I can hear you beautifully. Nan.
Okay, good. Okay.
So start.
Can we proceed?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you, Chad. Okay, so I wanted to take pick up where we left off last time and recapitulate a little bit about the work we had done and the decisions we'd made for comments on the safety element. So we're finishing comments on the safety element to turn in by Thursday so that they can be included in the packet for the Planning Commission meeting next Wednesday. So I'm trying to get this done. All right, so I wanted to go over very quickly first the recommendations we'd already decided on. And without going into, wait a minute, did I skip a? Yeah, okay, wait a minute. Okay, without going into infinite detail, I have detail on the slides, but I won't go into it unless someone on the committee wants to see the detail or has questions about what we decided last time. The first topic was had to do with the filing, first of all, filing, and then referencing, indexing all the geotechnical reports, geologic geotechnical reports. And I think the decision was to go ahead and recommend scanning the old reports, starting with the old reports, scan them and make them available on the town's website. The idea is to have all the reports available to the public. Okay. The second topic had to do with cascading hazards, one hazard triggering another, whether it's almost immediate or whether you have a delay of months. And we were going to add a new policy to recognize and to prepare, be proactive about cascading hazards. Specifically, we're going to recommend having a hazard and risk analysis done for cascading hazards, not hazards separately, and to have a comprehensive evacuation study for the town and to include its sphere of influence, the surrounding communities and the county areas. Okay, any questions so far? Okay. And that's the detail. Next topic was about resilience of our utilities and roads in fault zones. And we approved this item last time. We said that the town and the utility companies should take this issue very seriously. We should, the way the draft safety element is written right now, only the new, as they put it, new subdivisions are to take care of having resilient utilities and roads and fault zones. It's very narrowly written. So we wanted to start applying the principles articulated in the draft safety element for resilience to the entire town. We wanted to start with a map of utilities and roads at fault crossings. We wanted to map out the fault crossings, not just with the San Andreas, but with all our potentially active faults in town. And the draft safety element suggested a utilities and roads resilience program, but just for new development. And I thought, we thought that was a good idea. So we wanted to apply that to the entire town and to the outlying areas, the sphere of influence. Questions here? Okay, that's the detail, which you don't want to see. Okay, and here was the problem. On the left, we have the maps that the draft safety element is using to define the seismic hazards, and I put stars at the fault crossings that would be recognized. That's on the left, and on the right are the fault crossings that we probably should recognize. It's a whole several more for this secondary faults. Okay, and Chet had made the comment last time that modern cars are not going to be able to navigate roads that are broken up with fault crossings, and this is I think even my SUV would have trouble crossing broken up asphalt like this. Okay, next topic. The draft safety element was written narrowly to, well, let's just say the requirement for geotechnical reports for new developments was in the landsliding section, under the landsliding hazard of the safety element. And we're recommending pulling it out so that it's obvious that it's more applicable. So it's applicable to all the hazards, not just landsliding. And flooding, we discussed, we wanted to connect with actually the sustainability policy, which would identify parcels that are subject to flooding and identify them by type of flooding and depth of flooding. We wanted to recommend that the town perform a new master storm drainage report and update it regularly. And I have a question. Did we decide on a frequency for updating? I have every 5 years in parentheses here. I'd like to hear from the committee about the update interval. What do they think is the right interval for updating a storm drain report? Chet, Gary?
Well, good. Well, I will speak. I think the more often you do it, the better. However, there is a financial problem. I'm getting a lot of feedback. But 5 years seems reasonable to me. If we ask for 5, 10 years.
Okay, 5 to 10 years.
Could it be that I could turn these?
No, you're good now.
If you ask for 5 years, you may get 10.
That's a
And it's
good
better
point.
than never.
Okay, so okay to suggest 5 years, Chet? So Gary, yes, Chet? Chet is muted. Okay,
More technical difficulties.
okay, I'm getting reverberation in Chet's microphone.
Just say, it says yes.
That was a yes?
It's hard to follow all of this with so many things happening. Seems to me if there are reasons to make changes that they should be made whenever it's possible. We don't have to wait 5 years to make a formal change.
I'm sorry,
We want the town to be up to date at all times.
oh,
Can I make a comment from the floor? Okay, the general plan calls for a 5-year review. So a good baseline would be to say, in accordance with the general, you would like to see that part be 5 years. Just a thought. The housing plan is done every 8 years, but that's the state. The local general plan for Noah Valley is about 5 years.
Tell me what she said.
And, only thing I need to get is that there's a significant weather event, weather or, I guess, natural disaster event, then it should review within 6 months of that event. Because things change.
I just want to make a general comment. It's about the Brown Act. Dad has a hard time in this room. And so he asked me questions and I whisper in his ear what people say. I am not telling him what to think or what to do. This is a cat issue and I just so I'm going to do things if need to. So the question that if I say it correctly, Rita, when there's a big
Disaster or weather related event, that there should be a review within 6 months of that event to see if what we're doing it, something else needs to be updated.
Did you hear that?
A little bit.
We should have it updated after 6 months after a big disaster.
That's good.
Yeah,
We don't want to wait 5 years if there's a need to get something down faster. All right.
Okay,
We should continue. Are you here, Nan?
I'm here, but the sound is so garbled, I have no idea what was just said. Gary's microphone is the only one that's clear at this point. The others have reverberation.
Maybe just close.
I think.
Oh, nice. Sorry.
Here we go.
It's wonderful to live in Silicon Valley when everything works so beautifully.
So Nan, this is Bob, can you hear me, Nan?
Now I can, yes.
Are
I
you with
couldn't
us?
before. Hello? Bob?
Yeah?
I'm hearing my own voice echo, but okay. All right, so what was the gist of that conversation?
Hold on. We're gonna have to figure out do this live.
Sorry.
So this is on mute.
Nice.
Maybe this is the problem over here.
Now you can talk. Can
Nan, are you with us?
I'm with you. Can you hear me?
No. I turned on the speaker so that Dad can hear because he can't hear. And when I turn on the speaker, we get reverberation.
May I answer? May I answer you, Nan?
Yes, thank you, Gary.
The fallback position is that every 5 years, the new drainage report should be done. But in the event of a serious earthquake, landslide, flooding, it should be done within the next 6 months, Nan.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
That seems reasonable to me.
Right.
Nan?
Yes.
But he can't hear her at all. Go ahead.
We heard her very well earlier. It's too bad
Yeah.
we can't hear her all the time.
Can you hear me now? Hello? No?
Yep, yes,
Yes? No?
yes.
Okay,
Good. It's working now.
okay. Thank you. This is tricky. Okay, thank you, Gary, for the clarification there. And the recommendation is to keep records of all the flooding, all the storm drain blockages. And for new development, this was Dana's idea, discourage curbs and encourage on-site retention of stormwater so that we are not flooding the storm drains and we are keeping the water in the ground where it needs to be. Okay. And that's the detail. Recommendation is to pause development temporarily so the housing element and safety element can be done together. Okay. Now, for the geologic and ground movement potential maps, the draft safety element refers always to the 2017 maps as if they're static, unchanging. And we are making a statement that they're dynamic living documents and should not be treated as static documents. We wanted them to cover not just the town limits, but the surrounding areas to some extent, especially in the sphere of influence. I'd like to see Ladera, and we need to see Los Troncos Woods for sure. And up, yeah, and up into Woodside a little bit. The maps should be regularly updated. And I don't think we decided on a frequency for that. And I wanted to discuss the process for updating. So for updating, for regularly updating, is it okay if we just say they should be regularly updated and not specify a time or frequency?
That's probably the best that we can do.
Yeah, Gary's nodding. Chat, I'm
Yes,
sorry.
yes.
Yes, chat too, okay. And for the process for updating, Mary? Reverberation. Okay, so for the process for updating.
Was that a question? It was asking a question, but now we can hear her from the front.
Wait, Mary, can someone repeat Mary's? What Mary just said.
Nan, can you repeat your question?
My question has to do with the process for updating. Pat had commented that there needs to be as she put it, dedicated process for updating the maps. We need to have a very, very clear, accountable and transparent process for updating. There's been some issue with updating. Okay, and here's a suggestion that I like. You know, if you'd like to, we can include this as a recommendation. If not, we don't. But here's a suggestion that the ground movement geologic maps should be maintained and updated in a publicly transparent manner, always publicly transparent in this order. With this process in this order. The town's consulting geologist discusses map changes with our committee. And the changes that are agreed on are presented to the planning commission for their comments, the changes they approve are presented to the town council. then the town's consulting geologist updates the maps in a timely manner. He maintains the maps, and the town posts the updated maps on its website. That is the process that has been done for quite a while. It fell into disuse, and I suggest that we make it very explicit that this is the process that should be used going forward. Any thoughts, Chet and Gary? Chet?
It's just a little hard to follow all of this.
Okay.
It's difficult to update the geologic map because information comes at unpredictable times. It takes a lot of time to study and a fault that hasn't been put on the map. And it's going to will always require a good deal of discussion to accept a change. And we don't really have a straightforward policy for doing that. It's absolutely essential that the town geologic map be kept up. I think it's right now, it's probably way out of date, that there is information about faulting that was recorded back in 1909. And that's going to require considerable work by some of us, by somebody, to get that information published so it will be accepted by the geologic community. We can't predict when these things will happen. But whenever something new comes up, certainly the committee should try to get in touch with the town so that the new information will be put on the map.
Okay, absolutely, very good point. And at that point, the cotton shires would be brought in, have a discussion, and then the changes would go from cotton shires in our committee to the planning commission, to the town council, and finally to the maps.
I
Yes,
agree with that. We certainly need to have cotton shires involved, and that hasn't happened in recent times.
okay. Okay, good. Gary?
I would, can you hear me now?
You're muted?
Naturally, I did. Try to do that. Okay, let's see now. One of the problems I would suggest is that there's been very little enthusiasm amongst the town council to see what the Geologic Safety Committee has been doing. They rely on the consulting geologist, and the lines are down. They don't and have not consulted with us, though they have made some of the trenching stuff available. For instance, for the Stanford Wedge, but we are working sort of blind and in a vacuum here, where it seems as if the reports that have been paid for by the town to support the town geologist are what they settle on without really giving us a day in court. At least that's been my experience. And I think, you know, we did a lot of work on the Stanford Wedge. These two guys particularly spent lots of time on it, and it didn't really get a fair hearing in the town. At least that's my understanding. We didn't get much feedback.
I know there's hands up, and I'm acting like I'm the chair right now, which I'm not, but we have any technical problems. Dad's having a really hard time hearing, couldn't hear you very well, Gary. I'd like to take a brief pause. If anybody thinks this is a bad idea of having my father and I move far end, so we're far away from Gary's computer, so then maybe we don't get these feedback problems. If I could just see some nods, that might be okay. So
our record has been lost over time. Like detectives trying to determine what the crime was from limited evidence, and the different views and are interpreted. We need to disagree upon. We really need to have. Yes.
Yeah, can you come off of mute so that, because then it's being recorded.
All right, now I'm off of mute. Anyway, it is a complicated problem, and we are humble enough to know that we don't have all the answers, but we would like to have a fair hearing. And it doesn't seem like, it seems like the train's left the station, shall we say. And it's been driven by the consulting geologist more than by us. Maybe that's correct and should be, but we should at least get together and discuss it.
Wow. Thank you, Gary. Yes, so I think the issue of the wedge has brought this to a head. But in general, for the safety element itself, do you want to, do you see what I have up on the screen? The steps for updating the maps?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
all very good.
You think that's good, or do you think it needs to be strengthened? Our part needs to be strengthened in some way. I can't imagine. Don't know what else to say.
Do you want to
Well, I
take
don't
public
need to
comment on
put it
this?
all in caps. I think we've made the point. It's simple enough.
Okay, thank you. Okay, then I will add that to our recommendations that we agreed to last time. Okay. Public comments?
It's very, the sound hasn't come through to this, to me. But I'm very concerned that the town has had the attorney for the town tell me that we, as a committee, should not discuss or not work on the geology of the wedge. And that is a shame that here we are, a committee of geologists, and we are not allowed to study something that's of huge importance to the town. We need to have free opportunity to study and discuss current geologic problems like that of the wedge, instead of being told that we must not do it. I have, as an individual, have written things to the town council and to the planning commission, but not as a chair of the committee, but only as a citizen. That's a crude way of having to do things. This committee ought to be heard. And I hope that changes will be made so that we can be involved whenever there's a geologic problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Chet. Well put, both of you, Chet and Gary.
Nandy, do you have more to say?
Hold on.
Do I have more to say?
And Rusty
yeah.
Day has a question.
Okay, Rusty.
Thank you. It's more of a comment than a question. And I'd like to underscore the points that both of you have just made, but to separate them. There are two issues here. The first issue is about the charter and the jurisdiction of this committee. This committee was originally chartered to help the town protect the safety of residents by applying sound geologic science to the regulation of our land use. That's why the committee was formed. And the original charter of the committee authorized the committee to look at proposed developments in town and comment on the quality and accuracy of the geologic investigations that were done. Blue Oaks is a precedent in case.
Can you hear him well?
Recently, the last town council has changed the charter and jurisdiction of this committee. We now have a new town council. It's incumbent upon the new town council to revisit the charter of this committee and to establish what the role of this committee is. And I agree with the remarks of the two committee members that the role of the committee should be returned to its original role and expanded to include consideration of the geologic impacts of development on town and an assessment of the quality of the geotechnical investigations being done, to give a peer review, a second set of eyes, a critical examination of the information the town is relying upon to make development decisions. That's one issue. Then there's a second issue that's being conflated with this, and that is, what do we do about our ground movement potential maps, our geologic maps? That issue was addressed from the inception with a very clear policy about how those maps would be prepared and how they could be changed. That policy has been readopted by the town council for 50 years. There is an existing written policy which addresses much of what Nan Shostak presented, but is even more detailed and specific about the nature of the review that must precede a proposed change, about the public nature of that review, about the level of evidence or the quality of evidence required to substantiate a proposed change to the geologic maps, and then a public hearing and approval process through the Planning Commission with a documented set of reasons why each change is made, so that we have a written record of why a change was made, what justifies it, when it was made, and that it was approved. That process has been followed fairly well within town up until 2017, when it was not followed to remove the Hermit Fault from the ground movement potential map. There was no public disclosure. There was no public review. There was no presentation of evidence to substantiate the removal of that fault. The Planning Commission never approved the removal of that fault from the map. And there's no document, as the town council policy requires, no documented reason explaining why it was removed and what justified the removal. That's simply inexplicable. And I want to, without belaboring the point, I want to make the point that this calls into question the integrity of our governance. We ought not be making changes to geologic maps to benefit or favor someone without public disclosure, public scrutiny, public review and approval of that. This is a wide open door to corruption, and we ought to close it. The town did 50 years ago when it adopted the policy the town council did. There's no reason that we don't continue to apply that policy. Thank you.
Okay. I wasn't going to go into my chat. No, may I speak? Can you hear me? Uh-oh. No, Gary, everyone's muted up there. Gary?
Yes,
Okay, yeah, you can hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. I wasn't going to go into detail on Rusty's example of the wedge and the implications. For the safety element, I would simply recommend that we be very explicit about the process that needs to be followed to make changes to the maps. Okay, are we okay with that for the safety element?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
okay, then there's another question. Well, there are a whole bunch of maps and what to use for whichever purpose. Pat had made the observations, or made the suggestion that we really need to use all the maps. But the question is, which maps do you use and when? We've got the town maps, we've got CGS maps, we've got USGS maps, and they don't all always agree. Now, for the safety element, we also have the CGS landslide susceptibility map, which has nothing to do with, well, I wouldn't say it has nothing to do. It shows, it was a map prepared for the entire state and shows detail for, you can zoom in so you can see detail for your area, but it doesn't agree entirely with our, with the landslides shown on our geologic movement potential map. The yeah, I'll go into detail what I want to suggest for that, because the draft safety element refers to this map, and it's not clear at all to me that they should be using it. Okay, so there's that question. So there's then another question of maps for different stages of the development process. And last question is, when you're upzoning land, that is, you're rezoning for denser development, and the land has potential hazards shown on the town's maps, when do you do a site investigation? Gary, this is related to your comment that you need to do an investigation before you well, you didn't say before zoning, but the question is whether it's before zoning or whether you wait until land has been upzoned and then you go in and do a site investigation and you find out whether you can actually put as many units as you like on the land. Okay, so let's go through these. Okay, so here are all the maps we've got. The town maps, the CGS maps earthquake zones of required investigation, which includes liquefaction, includes faults, it includes landslides. The fault activity map and the Alquist-Fiola maps for known active faults. And then you have the survey maps. So the Quaternary faults and folds database is the main one we're concerned with. So what do you use when there? Here's, yeah, I think here's your comment, Gary. Geologic hazard should be well understood before the housing element is finished. Housing needs to be done right in a geologically hazardous environment. Absolutely correct. So for the housing element, the town's consultants created their own maps using overlays for different hazards on the on the town's I think on the topographic map. The fault map was simplified. Landslide was estimated based mainly on slope, and they didn't even consider liquefaction. I complained mightily at 2 of the housing element meetings housing element committee meetings a year ago, and of course there was nothing done. So it's my time to complain here. I'm especially concerned about the liquefaction issue, and I'm concerned about the issue of not considering secondary faults, basically focusing on the San Andreas. The whole draft safety element is, when it talks about fault zones, is talking about the San Andreas and nothing else. Okay, and the consultant did not appear to use the town's maps. And that's how we got the some of the sites we have for the RENA allocation. Okay, so here's the map that's in the landslide susceptibility map that's in the draft housing element right now. It's a CGS map that was designed to identify areas of deep-seated landslide susceptibility. And this is what's being used for, in the safety element, is being used for identifying areas of possible landslide. Well, it's just for deep-seated landslides, the state map is. A counterexample, something that wouldn't be on the map, is a mudslide we had on Alpine Road a few weeks ago. That's a marked landslide area for us, but it's not on the state maps. So I'm wondering, why are we using this map? And the CGS website says this map is not appropriate for evaluation of landslide potential at any specific site. It's just too general. Okay. So my recommendation for a comment is that we say that this map should be used only as a coarse filter to help determine landslide potential, should be used in conjunction with the town's ground movement potential map. So Chet, Gary, do you agree on that recommendation? If they want to, yeah, Gary's nodding. Chet, are you okay with that?
Yeah, you go with what you've got, of course, but we do need to make sure we have really detailed studies of areas that are picked for housing development. Those certainly need to be, we have to have better data, the best data we can. And everything is a good overlay right now, and it in details, it's probably not correct. But it's it's better than not having anything at all. But I think once you pick the housing sites exactly where you want them, there must be some further study, I think, to make sure that we've picked sensible areas.
Okay, so, okay, so we'll come back to that in just a minute.
But I want to say that I agree with Gary, and this town has many different kinds of landslide problems. There are old landslides that are stable and that homes have been built on, and they're probably safe for additional homes. But there are other landslides in this town that are active. We have everything in between. So every site needs to be studied with the knowledge that a careful analysis should be made of the landslide potential.
Okay, good. Yes. Okay. Okay, so we seem to be, I want to see if we can be very specific. If we can't, we can't, but it'd be nice if we can. There are maps for three stages and in land development. There's a planning stage. And for instance, for the housing element, you have programs for upzoning, you have programs for low-income housing. You have they think in terms of programs, but planning uses maps. And then there's a zoning stage, which the town was going, the planning department originally wanted to do immediately because there are some advantages with the state if you do that. But zoning has been postponed. I think it's going to happen pretty soon. So you have to rezone to carry out some of the programs in the housing element. And then there are maps for zoning, maps for parcel specific development. And the question is, which maps do you use at which stage? When do you use the town's geologic and ground movement potential maps? Do you use them when you're looking at rezoning? Or which they haven't been so far. So far, the town's consultants' maps have been used for the planning and will be applied for the rezoning. These maps have had overlays of their choosing without regard to the town's maps. Okay. So which maps should we use to evaluate the hazards? Pat said you should use all the maps, town, CGS, USGS. And consider all the hazards. Or do you want to, I think the town is slipping gradually into using simplified maps like the consultants' hazard overlays instead of the maps that are already available. So any thoughts, Chet, Bob? I mean, Chet and Gary?
We need to use the most of the best maps that are available. That's not an easy thing to find necessarily. So we just need to be aware of these problems and handle them in every case.
So would you suggest combining, so you have the town's CGS, USGS maps, maybe it's the consultants' maps, and you'd say you'd have to use experience and professional judgment where the maps differ? How would you handle that? Or do you just say narrowly, just use the town's maps and that's that, or use the consultant's maps and that's that? No other maps? I'm not. What should be the procedure here?
I see Rusty.
Rusty? Okay.
Could I just add a public comment at this point? What's currently going on in town is we have two areas that are currently zoned as open space hazardous based on the existing geologic safety maps that are being proposed for rezoning to high-density residential development. So we've already gone through the process in town, through the general plan, through this adopted safety element of categorizing the hazards of that land. Under the land use element, any land that is subject to severe geologic flooding or wildfire hazard is zoned OA. These parcels are zoned OA because they have risk of liquefaction. One of them has a fault, and both of them have high or very high wildfire hazard. So the town comes in with a consultant's map that shows no hazard on these lands. And we're going to rezone on that basis. I mean, we're missing the forest for the trees here.
Yeah.
And I don't think the question is what map are we going to use? The question is, because that can't be predetermined in advance. The question is, are we going to set a standard of candor and honesty that assesses the hazards on the land in accordance with our best available information? Or are we going to ignore our best available information and act as though the hazards don't exist? That's really what this committee needs to address. I don't think we need a recommendation by this committee, use this map, use that map. Because it depends, as Chet said, what is the best available, most current, accurate assessment of hazard and risk on that land? That's what you use. Then the question is, what kind of process do you go through before you rezone land? Well, it certainly should go through this committee. But we also, this committee isn't looking at, correct me if I'm wrong, are you looking at flood hazard?
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Yes.
there's another.
We are.
come up with. If you're looking, you're looking at wildfire hazard, is that within your province? Who's looking at that hazard to assess whether land should be rezoned? How are we going through this process? What does this committee, you're all prudent geologists concerned with public safety. What is your recommendation about the process we should follow before we rezone lands that are hazardous? That's what I ask you to consider.
Okay, thank you, Rusty. Well, that brings me to the second point. When should you do the site investigation when you have a situation like this? Should it be before you rezone? You should look at it carefully before you rezone? Or do you wait until the development application comes in for 20 units an acre? And then you do a liquefaction study and you find out that you can only get five units an acre or something like that. And then that puts the town's plans for dense housing in jeopardy. Okay, so that's my example, the one Rusty brought up. Only I was a little more general about it. So
Well, my strong recommendation, I'm just going to jump in and say my strong recommendation about your question, Nan, is that you use the available information to make an assessment as to whether the land should be rezoned first. And that hasn't been done.
Yeah.
You're not going to have perfect information, and you're not going to be able to, depending on the size of area to be rezoned, you're not going to be able to specify initially where geotechnical investigation should be done. But the zoning decision, as we said in the existing safety element, is based upon an assessment of the land's hazard based upon the best available information. What does it show today about liquefaction, about landsliding, about faults and seismic rupture, about wildfire hazard? We did that analysis and we zoned the land in accordance with that analysis. Now, if we want to rezone, what's changed that justifies changing that?
All right.
Where
then-
is the proof that that hazard has been removed or mitigated?
Then well, it's beyond just this committee, as you say. It's the other safety committees too. It's sustainability, it's emergency preparedness, it's wildfire, as well as geology. And it needs to be, so it's above a single committee level to make this determination. But all the committees should be consulted. Instead, the process was the consultants created their own maps that showed no hazards. The land is about to be rezoned. So it's a broken process. So Chet and Gary, what do you think?
This is coming so poorly.
That I cannot answer.
Even if it comes through well, it's hard to answer. The problem is one of probabilities. And in a way, all the maps and the wildfire hazard, all of them have to be added together. And people think in terms of the totality of the, this is actually what you said, Rusty, was that you really need the best information, which is the aggregate of everything that is going to impinge upon this environment. But it's like the weather. We are going to end up with a probability. Only our probability won't be anywhere near as accurate as the weather. We get feedback after a couple of days. We're talking 10, 20, 40 years. So it's very difficult if the data are diverse and subject to different interpretations. That's some of the so-called data is, it's really interpretations. So I think we have to look at all of it, put it all in a big pot and decide on an individual basis which of these sites is appropriate for what is being proposed, or something lesser. It's never going to be more. It's only going to be less. But that's, I think that's all we can do, and we're not judging, we're not, well, we have to predict the future, but we're not very good at that.
Well, that process is exactly what the California General Plan statutory framework calls for.
Yeah.
That's laid out in the statute. And the conduct of a hazard and risk assessment for the land has just recently been very well documented by the Governor's Office of Emergency or Planning and Research in the technical guidance about how you do that kind of assessment for wildfire hazard and risk. But that methodology is equally applicable to geologic hazard and risk. And it is exactly what was pioneered in this town. You begin by collecting on a map the best evidence you have. And from that depiction of hazard, you then assess what the impact of a geologic rupture or of a landslide or of a flood would be on surrounding population and resources. And you do the same for wildfire. And you do that if you want to rezone the land based on a comparison of what the occupancy would be if rezoned, and what level of population and resources and evacuation demands, etc., would be impacted. That analysis has not been done in the safety element or in the secret review that's been performed by the town. And it should be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rusty. In terms of the comments for the safety element, exactly what do you want to say, or do you want not to say? Do you want just to leave it and not say anything for the safety element, or do you want to make a statement, Chet and Gary? Do you want to make a statement that all the committees should be consulted to determine, or before rezoning piece of land, all the committees should be consulted about the hazards?
Yes, you can't argue with that. That's like, well, motherhood. Anyway, the fact is with it, we should do all that.
But the town has is running the process. The staff is running the process, and the staff is using its own consultants' maps to determine hazards for fire, for geologic, for ground hazards, and has done a simplified evacuation study, and it's using those to justify rezoning. So the process that Rusty has described and we're talking about has been sidestepped. The committees have been sidestepped. All the decisions are being made by the staff. Is that for the safety element? Do we want to say that the committees should be consulted? This is a higher level than just one particular project, one rezoning. It's just a general statement.
Well, each site that is proposed for rezoning will have its own idiosyncratic problems associated with it. But each problem should be evaluated in aggregate with the other problems that are on that particular site, so that we have an attempt to have a unified assessment of individual sites, including all the hazards.
Okay.
I agree that all the committees should be involved if that's possible. Unfortunately, the town acts very slowly. It's very difficult to get all the information to all the committees and synthesized in some way that a good conclusion can be made, but we should try to do it. I'm not sure that we have all the answers as to how it can be done, but I think we should consult with as many people as possible.
Okay, and would you like to put that statement in the draft safety element, that we should take a stand and make that recommendation, and then we'll see where it goes. But I'm very much in favor of doing that. It's just
Call it an integrated assessment of all natural hazards.
Okay,
Words are easy. The trick is to do it. That is going to be, it's like belling the cat. It's going to be next to impossible to get it done, but you've got to do the best job you can, whatever that is.
that's right. But if we don't articulate that idea right now, it's not ever going to happen. So let's get it started. Get the ball rolling here. At least try.
Lynn, this is Bob Rucky. I want to jump in here because there's a couple of issues I think I'd like to recommend that the committee do. One is there was a recommendation by Rusty earlier to go back to the original charter and have the town council agree to this original charter. It may be helpful in the record if the committee actually states, do you guys agree or not agree? And the other thing that I'm hearing is that all the committees in the town should be consulted before property is rezoned. And is that something that the committee members agree on? So there's two issues that the three of you need to make a statement on.
Okay, and the second one, if I may, all committees should be consulted. The safety committees, yes, absolutely, before rezoning. Gary, Chet, you agree on that one?
Yes, relevant committees.
Yeah, I'm calling it, yeah.
We're going to have to go through one of these situations in order to see how things can be done efficiently. I see that every committee is involved. It's going to be very difficult to evaluate all the information that comes to us. But we need to go through this process somehow to see how we can streamline it.
Okay, I can barely hear Chet. Bob, can you repeat what Chet said?
Okay.
Bad microphone, I think.
I will try. He was saying that this process of involving all the relevant committees is going to be very time consuming, but the town needs to do it anyway and hopefully find a way that it can be done efficiently.
That's essentially what I was saying. Yes, very good.
Good, thank you. Yeah, agree, but it needs, oops, sorry. Oops.
There was another thing about the charter. Does the town committee want to have a revision of the charter or not?
Yeah, but that's not for the safety element. I've thought about this too and have some suggestions there, very specific suggestions. I'd like to discuss that at the next meeting. Is that okay? That we need to decide what we think the charter should be and then ask the town council for its agreement or not. Is that okay? We can't address the charter of the committee in the safety element.
I would suggest that's the right place to address the charter of the committee. This is what the safety element is: our general plans, constitutional framework for how we are going to protect and regulate public safety in Portola Valley. This committee has a big role to play in that. And the safety element should call out not just this committee's role, but the role of the fire district or any other committee that we're relying upon to protect our public safety. The safety element is the document in which we should sort out and clarify who's responsible for what here in protecting our community.
Thank you. I agree with that.
Say that again.
That's not going to happen for this safety element. That is we could make a statement to that effect. That's a recommendation. If you want to start the ball rolling. we can make a general recommendation to that effect, but Rusty is right. It's not just our committee, it's all the other committees, and then it's the, what's the town's role? What's the fire district's role? Maybe the county, I'm not even sure. So for a recommendation from the committee, do we want to make a statement? Gary, Chet? I'd be willing to make a general statement that we recommend that the roles be clarified in the safety element.
Yeah, that's certainly the problem. We have a hard time deciding how to structure this overall aggregate.
Wait, sorry, Gary, can you unmute? Can you unmute? Oh, there, thank you, I'm sorry. Okay.
Well, it's certainly a difficult problem. We should call attention to that problem for the community to address.
The community, would you put it in the safety element, or would you just start the?
Well, I think you can say in the safety element that we've continued to encounter this and need real guidance from the board as to exactly who all does to what and to when. So they're in charge of the whole overall health and welfare of the society. But we're just calling attention to the fact that our mission is somewhat fragmented.
Mission fragment, and that's a good point.
I really want to encourage this committee to think carefully and expansively about what the safety element should address and resolve. That this isn't something to be done later or some other date. This is the opportunity for the community to come together in the safety element and identify who plays what role to protect our public safety. What policies do they apply? What regulations do we adopt to do that? And you're skirting the issue. Don't let the staff define for you what the safety element's going to say. Grab a hold of the steering wheel here and articulate what the safety element needs to say that it doesn't. And the first thing it needs to say is who has responsibility for what? We don't need any more ambiguity or lack of clarity or postponement of those issues. And, the earthquakes today in Turkey, Syria, and also in Kazakhstan, the one yesterday in New York, ought to bring home that we've got to stop putting this off till tomorrow and next year and the next decade.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out how to make a recommendation to include something like this in the safety element. This is okay. Is there general agreement? I've got to craft something by this week. Is there general agreement, Chet and Gary, to try to put something like this into the safety element, to say that there should be clarification of the roles of, and we could list all the parties for protecting the safety of the community. And
Nan, it's Dana. Can you hear me?
Dana, yeah, clearly.
I've had my hand up and down, and this has been really frustrating. I mean, I canceled a work meeting this morning to come and listen to you guys, and it didn't even get started until 10:30, 11:15. And first of all, I feel like you guys need support, from the town to run your meetings. I know it's hard for you guys. You're not techie people, but you are the most important group for safety. And you need to be legitimized. You guys can keep talking and talking and talking, but if nobody's listening, you've got to get your voice back on the map. And I want to remind everybody that we are a self-governing town, and you guys are in charge of geologic safety. And anything that happens with consultants needs to come back through you, before it goes anywhere else. And I want to see you. I see Sharon Hanlon's name on this list. Is she helping you in this meeting?
No, that's just the laptop, Bob's laptop that he used to run the Zoom.
Oh, bummer, because I thought, wow, she'll help them, but you guys need help, technologically. Frankly, every town meeting I've been to in the last month has been a technologic nightmare. So, we the people need support if we're going to run our government, and we need to demand it, and you guys need to fight for it. So please do.
Thank you, Dana.
Well, thank you for that. It's very difficult for this committee to get together and talk about these kinds of things because of the Brown Act. So we will continue to try to do the best we can. This has been a good meeting. I thank Rusty for his comments, which are very clear.
Yeah.
And they need to be followed.
Okay, so chat from that, I assume you'd like to put a statement in our comments on the draft safety element that we think there should be clarification of the roles that, well, I won't go into detail. Some of Rusty's suggestions. Yes, no?
Yes.
Gary?
Yes.
I am looking to see if I can figure out what the charter of the Geological Safety Committee is. If you could include that charter in your statement.
Wait, Mary, unmute.
No.
No?
No,
Can't-
you can either hear me or you can't, but I can ask the question over, I can move. But,
Yeah, please do.
I'm merely suggesting then that you add the geological safety charter, the Geological Safety Committee charter to your statement. And if you can't find it, then you need to rewrite it.
All right, then we need to discuss that right now, and I'm going to have to get out of this PowerPoint. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to go over to my notes on the charter, okay?
Yes.
Okay, I will stop sharing. Okay, and I will have to figure out where my notes on the charter are. I think I have them here. Okay.
Let's.
I don't need relevant so.
Okay. This is a little rough because I didn't have this on PowerPoint, but I will. Here.
One of the things that this meeting is showing me, at least, is that and you need to get together with each one of us at times and talk about some of the problems that we, the committee, is facing in trying to work well for the town. We just need to have these opportunities. This particular meeting today is cumbersome. We have not been able to get the electronics working well. So I will do my best to try to bring us together one or two of us at a time so that we can be more efficient in our thinking and more, we need to be clearer about where we're going.
Yeah.
So I will try to do that.
Okay, and so that brings us to the question of having a regularly scheduled meeting time, which would help a lot. We don't have to have the meeting every time, but if we choose a schedule, choose a time and get it on the town's calendar, it'll be a whole lot easier to come together every time we need to.
But we need to do some preliminary work before we have a meeting like this. We can't, we just can't do it as a committee, and that's the problem.
Yeah, the Brown Act is the hindrance.
Hindrance to us.
Yeah. Okay, I absolutely agree. Okay, here's
The town needs to help us. This electronics for this meeting are just awful. Needs to be clarified and made simple so that we can work better.
okay. Here is the charter. This is the charter of the committee as it was, as Craig Hughes redid it. I think it was Craig, the mayor, when he was mayor. The purpose of the Geologic Safety Committee is to provide the town council with expert advice regarding geologic matters as they might relate to town issues, including buildings, roads, and infrastructure. And my thoughts were to add, I mean, that's pretty general. That's not very specific at all. The committee will review and recommend appropriate measures to promote and protect the public safety of the community against geologic and seismic hazards and risks, including hazards and risks of potential land use and development, to get us into the process sooner. And the committee will assist the town in preparing an earthquake preparedness and education program. That was from the town, from the charter from 2010, and I'm not sure there ever was an earthquake preparedness and education program, but I think we should start one, restart it, or start one if there never was one. But the first one, committee will review and recommend appropriate measures to promote and protect the public safety of the community against basically ground hazards and risks, including hazards and risks of potential land use and development. So potential land use includes rezoning, and development includes new developments.
Yeah.
I'm open, absolutely. That's a thought, open to suggestions, thoughts. Gary, Chet.
It's very general and not specific. And it seems.
What would you add?
No, to me, it's pretty general, covers just about everything you could want to put underneath it. We ought to be able to make sure we get feedback though with other committees, feedback with other committees and other organizations that deal with the problem, like for instance, the town geologist.
Okay, so we should say that we would coordinate.
We need to coordinate and integrate their conclusions and assessment of areas where development is going to occur, or possibly occur.
That seems reasonable to me.
Well, it's a start. I think we can't just do this on the fly.
No.
From the floor, I would
Yeah.
comment, I think it's an excellent improvement over the existing charter. It's exactly what I think you need to bring to the attention of the community. My only question is whether the word preparedness in the second sentence, earthquake preparedness, includes evacuation and emergency response.
Where is preparedness? Oh, preparedness.
If it does, and I think it's broad enough to include that, then I think it's fine, because I think this committee, I'll get to this in a moment with the safety element, but one of the unfilled requirements for our safety element is to assess and address the safety and viability of our evacuation routes.
Oh, yeah.
And the current draft safety element doesn't do that. It's required to by state law, but it doesn't do it.
Okay,
So,
let me pop
And you
up
should
a
be
li-
involved in that. This committee charter should empower this committee to play a role in that. You have an important role to play.
yeah.
So I like what you proposed, Nan. I think it's broad enough and comprehensive enough to cover the most important contributions this committee can make.
Okay, well, that brings up another issue, and that is that there are issues all over the place that cross committee boundaries. There are, I mean, emergency preparedness should be doing evacuation. We should have a say in evacuation. Wildfire should have a say in evacuation. We need to coordinate with all of the other committees. And as you say, Gary, with the fire district, with the town. So there needs to be, I mean, it's sort of I don't think a committee of committees is going to work. It's sort of, you need one person speaking for each group to get together to make a comprehensive assessment or comprehensive, to make a suggestion from all perspectives for evacuation, for, if it's rezoning, whatever it is that involves safety from hazards.
I want to make one more comment, if I may, that I think may be helpful to the point you just made, Nan. 3 years ago, I recommended to the town council that it adopt a wildfire safety ordinance that would appoint a public safety officer. We're here talking about Brown Act problems and the inability of committees to get together, and we're conjuring up the possibility of yet more committees getting involved. And just think of the multiplication of Brown Act problems you're going to have by creating a morass of committees convening on this. And that's why there needs to be a single point of accountability for public safety in our community. Now, that could be a town public safety officer, or what the fire district is envisioning and what the National Fire Protection Association recommends and CAL FIRE regulations require is that there be an authority having jurisdiction, basically the fire district, which has responsibility for organizing and implementing an evacuation program.
Come on.
And if you have that authority, if you place that authority in an administrative agency like that, you eliminate the Brown Act problems. And you establish a single point of accountability. And you can create a public input process for that. But I would encourage you to acquaint yourselves with what's called NFPA Standard 1140. There's a standard for evacuation, 1616.
Wait, standard 1140. And what?
And 1616. And those two standards address the process for reviewing the hazard and risk implications of development and the hazard and risk implications of evacuation and the organization of the community to prepare for and equip itself for evacuation and emergency response.
Okay.
So there's a lot of thinking. We don't have to reinvent the wheel here. We don't have to start from ground zero. There's an awful lot of work and thinking that's gone into developing answers to the questions you're grappling with right now. And I encourage you to look at that, to understand that, to engage in the discussion that's already ongoing about implementation or adoption of those standards and how that would benefit us.
Okay. I'd like to hear from Mary. Is Mary here?
She is, she's coming.
I'm hoping. Hi, Nan. It would, from the town council, from the town government, is going to, as your liaison, I'd like to make it.
Okay,
Sure.
wait, Mary, wait, sorry, your voice isn't clear.
We have on the consent agenda for Wednesday that Bob is going to join the committee.
Wait, no,
So we
Mary,
have
wait, Mary,
and,
whoa,
more people on the committee. So I was wondering if there's enough interest from the committee to consider changing the charter to include 7 members. And I don't know parliamentarily how this proceeds exactly. I'm not doing any violations, but I wanted it as part of what you're discussing in terms of charter, ask for discussion on that and for recommendation to the council.
what was it? Okay, you're reverberating, so I can barely, I just got,
Not easy to find qualified people for our committee. We only have a certain number of geologists in this town. I know of one more that I could talk to. I doubt that he would be interested. I know enough about him to say that I just don't think he would do it, but I'll try to find out if that's so. I
Yeah.
don't know other people in the town.
it may be that we need some, we also need some non-geologists who are, well, let's say, lay geologists, people who are conversant with geology, who are interested in the geology of the town and are willing to start thinking about some of these issues with us.
Well, that's why I recommended that Bob Rucky be a member. He knows more about faulting in this town than probably any single individual.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, he does, absolutely. But we
And
need,
he's interested and has the energy to be involved. That's important.
yes. And there are other people too, I think, who would fall into that category. So Gary, what do you think about increasing membership to 7 people and possibly including some, I'll say lay geologists?
I don't know if we could find 7 people.
I think
Yeah.
so.
You go with what you can get. I myself have thought it would be really important to get another regional geologist, someone who has very broad experience. Bob has important experience in this general, the localized area, but geology is a worldwide problem, and we often say the best geologist is the one who's seen the most rocks or done the most mapping. And that means judgment comes from diverse experiences, not from just solely in one area. So I do think Bob is going to be a really good addition to the community, to our committee. Why? Because Nan, Pat, and Bob are the worker bees. They do all the work, and Chet and I just say, Chet, well, we'll think about it. We have perspective, but the flesh is weak. We're both getting on. So I think we need another geologist. I'm not opposed to having neighbor geologists or people who are interested in rocks, but I think the fundamental problems really require as much scientific input as we can muster. Our difficulty is not we have an excess of science, but a dearth. And that's always the problem with rocks and whatnot. So I'm personally think we could stand some more expertise with this.
So Gary, you'd be in favor of, would you be willing to take another, say, lay geologist, plus if we can find another geologist, experienced geologist who's interested, to go to 7, to make it 7?
Well, we can't recruit it on the spot.
What's that again?
Messages to my friends.
I would, and I don't know about Chet, but I'm not going to be on the committee much longer. So that would be, you might say, a replacement for me.
That would be difficult.
I feel the same way.
That's
Yeah.
also, that's very
Well,
difficult.
we're all irreplaceable, but that doesn't mean it isn't going to happen. So, you know, one way or the other.
Two earthquakes. So
Great. Yeah, no, I understand. The magic number is 7, and we need the bots.
Out of the country.
That's fortunate.
That's fine. with
I
me.
was right here. This is Chandelier.
Do you want to agree to increase the
That's
size
where
of
that
the
building
building?
is. It's
I
not
don't think we can do it. It'd be nice if we could.
That's where that building.
We will have to try.
So
What
call a
is-
vote, to see if the committee will agree to increase the size to 7, please.
Well, we could have a vote as to whether we should
So do it.
increase the number of members of the committee to 7. There's nothing wrong with the idea, but accomplishing it is something else. I'm in favor.
Is there a second?
Is there a
Second.
second to the idea?
Are we allowed to vote on this? I would second it if we're allowed to vote on it.
All right, so I'm in favor.
Chet's
I
in
move
favor.
the motion.
Seconded.
Jeez.
Gary approved. Gary agrees.
All those say aye.
Aye.
Aye,
Opposed?
it's adopted. The idea is adopted.
Okay.
Hey, Nan, you've got a lot of work on your hands, Nan.
Yeah, I know. All right,
Well-
I'm going to need a little help. Pat is in Patagonia, so the second member of the subcommittee is out of contact. Would Bob be willing to be the second member of the subcommittee in Pat's absence for the safety element?
Assuming that I get on the committee, the answer is yes.
No, well, okay, don't even be you're not official. I mean, you haven't gone through the official process. Would you unofficially assist me in Pat's absence? with the
Yes,
safety element? Yeah,
yes.
Yes,
thank you. So we can get something out quickly in time for the planning commission to see it before it thinks about the changes to the safety element. I think it's important to get our comments out as soon as we can. And thank you, Bob, very much. Appreciate that. Another thought I had is that our comments may be adopted. They may be completely ignored in the final safety element because the town was trying to make surgical changes to the safety element. That is only the changes that were necessary to make it comply with the new housing element. If they continue along that path, all of our discussion or almost all of the discussion will be ignored, and then we will have to push for another revision to the safety element as soon as possible. I think according to state law, that can only be done once every quarter, but some communities change the elements of their general plan regularly. Whenever they come up with something new, they go ahead and make the change. Our safety element hasn't been changed since 2010. So I think that needs to be looked at. So, I mean, so just realize these are the comments on the safety element. We may not see them in the final safety element that the town puts out this spring or this summer. And we'll have to figure out what to do about it if that's the case. Okay, and it's probably the same with the other committees. I don't know. I don't know whether their comments will be accepted or not. Yeah. Chet, are you?
I like what you're doing, Nan. We couldn't get along without what you are proposing, and I like what you are suggesting.
Thank you, Chet. Thanks very much for the vote of confidence. It's,
Rusty Day has a question or comment to make a comment.
I just have one last comment. First of all, as I said before, I think the safety element is this committee's opportunity to grab the steering wheel and set expectations about what the safety element should address with respect to geologic hazard and risk and public safety. Nan's point that the town wants to minimize the changes to the safety element, unfortunately, is not consistent with the California Government Code, which requires the safety element to be updated now. There are mandates that apply, including a mandate that required updating by January last year of the evacuation routes and the hazards and risks to ensure that we have safe and viable routes. So allowing yourself to be constrained by or cabined by what the town council tells you it wants to do, as opposed to exercising your good judgment and authority to clearly state what you believe needs to be done, I think should be the guidelines that you follow for how you address the safety element. And on that score, just as an aid to the committee, I want to give each of you the applicable provisions of the California Government Code that tell you the law specifies what changes need to be made to the safety element that aren't getting made, so that you can see for yourself what is to be done about seismic safety, what is to be done about flood hazard and risk, what is to be done about wildfire, what is to be done about the evacuation routes. And the point I want to close on is just sit down and look at the draft safety element. All you have to do is look at it. Look at the table of contents, peruse the document, and you will immediately see that it's missing many of the subjects that are required. It's not addressing flood hazard. Doesn't explain what the law requires for that. But most importantly, it's not addressing risk. The draft safety element has 3 chapters. The third and final chapter is hazard. And it goes through and elaborates or refers to, without assessing the magnitude or extent of hazard in town, it refers to hazards. But then it doesn't have chapter 4, which the government code requires, and that is an assessment of what risk do these hazards pose to the surrounding population and infrastructure of our community. The government code requires the safety element to grapple with that critical question. If we have a 7.5 earthquake in town, or not in town, 70 miles south of San Jose, what risk does that pose to our community? The safety element is the instrument by which we are required by state law to come to grips with that question and ask ourselves, do we understand what that risk is and are we prepared to deal with it? Have we taken the steps that we see that we can and should take to deal with that? And I think one of the most important comments that
point out no safety element. Does it address geological? It only if you want collaboration between those, they all know Steve is happy to direct.
Okay, I didn't catch the last of what Rusty said. He just sort of went offline. The microphone failed.
I'd like to add a comment that I would very much like to see these things, and thank you very much for what you've done, Rusty. I think this is invaluable.
Rusty, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Rusty, in response to your point about risk, can you see the screen? Here's where we were addressing risk. This is a specific recommendation, which you didn't see. Recommended action 1. This is under cascading hazards. So this is considering all hazards, all geologic hazards together. Incorporate into the town's emergency operations plan a hazard and risk analysis of cascading hazards and the corresponding emergency and ongoing response is required. Develop likely scenarios for cascading hazards. Okay, so hazard and risk analysis for total geologic hazards, total ground hazards. And that doesn't include, I mean, you know, you could then try to include fire, and you can try to include whatever else, but this includes geology and emergency response together. Okay, that's our recommendation, and that's pretty strong.
Well, I like the recommendation.
Thank you, Chad. Yeah, that's what we came up with last time. So, yeah, if it's a recommendation, if we keep pushing the point, if we keep making the point and find a way to implement this through the town structure, then we'll be much further ahead.
I think the notion of cascading hazards is an important one. It's cumulative hazard, you know, that if you have these cascading events. I want to emphasize the difference between a risk assessment and a hazard assessment. So a hazard assessment is you look at a particular hazard. Let's say there's a fault that runs right through Chet's property. And we want to look at that fault and we want to characterize it, assess it, and determine, does it have a probability of rupture? And if so, how far, what would that be? That's a hazard assessment. A risk assessment then asks the question, if that fault ruptured, what effects would it have on surrounding populations and infrastructure? What resources, what people, what assets are exposed to loss or danger as a result of that hazard occurring? That's a risk assessment. And under state law, we are required to do both a hazard assessment and a risk assessment. Our safety plan doesn't candidly do a hazard assessment, and it doesn't attempt to do a risk assessment.
Okay, thank you, Rusty. Yeah, this statement, this recommended action one, assumes that people understand what would be involved in the risk analysis for multiple hazards. And Gary pointed out at the last meeting that the multiple hazards can happen, or cascading hazards. I use cascading because that's the term the consultants use, so they'll understand what we're talking about. Gary pointed out that a triggered hazard can happen either immediately or concurrently with the causative event, or it can happen sometime later. It could happen many years later. It could happen the next year. Depends on what it is. It's a triggered hazard. And all that has to be taken into account, and it's extremely, extremely complicated.
Yeah.
But we need to try to start making an evaluation of both complete hazard and from the ground, we'll call it ground hazards, and an evaluation of the consequences to people, to the environment, to property. That is a risk if these composite hazards actually happen. And that I mean, this would include single hazards too. Maybe a fault ruptures and that's it, but that's usually not the case.
Rusty has raised some very good points, and somehow members of the committee are going to have to get together some way, one-on-one, or in some fashion at least, to discuss these points that he's brought up and the other things that we've discussed at this meeting. There's a lot of work to be done. It's not easy for us to do it. We will try.
Thank you, Chet. Yeah, we're willing to try. May need some help, but I think we're willing to make the point strongly that there's a lot of work that needs to be done here.
Well, that's, you have done a lot, Nan, to bring out the fact that there is a lot of work to be done, and it's not easy. And some of us are moving along in years. It's very difficult to handle all of these problems that face the committee. We need more people in the committee, but I'm not sure that we can find them easily. We have much to discuss. We'll try to do it after this meeting.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I have nothing more.
Well, thank you, Nan.
Okay, I'm sorry I couldn't be there today. I apologize for that.
Well, that's all right. You've been online and you have been very helpful. You always are.
Thank you, Chad.
And we thank Mary Hefty for being here. I wanted to make that statement earlier and I forgot. But thank you, Mary, for being the liaison officer of the town council for us.
I would just mention the last item on the agenda. Did we cover that? Can you see the agenda? We can't see the agenda, so we might copy his agenda from the future, but the last item is.
Last item on the agenda, she wants Mary to talk about it. So Mary, what is the last item on the agenda?
The agenda is one thing that man mentioned, the last item is when are you gonna have your next meeting? And she already mentioned that the idea that we could have standing meeting time so that the town could be prepared for your meeting, and so that there'd be, when everybody would know, and I suggest the second, or the first and second, Monday of that, the normal chunk, which is 10 o'clock.
Okay, I can't hear, Mary, your recommendation, you're sort of reverberating from my point of view. What is your suggestion was something about a Monday for a regular? meeting? There you go.
There I am. Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just suggesting that you choose a time that you wish to meet on a monthly basis. And that, of course, it looks like you're meeting the first Monday of the month, but you could do the second Monday. And just make that a standing recommendation for when you're meeting.
We need to talk about this. I'm not sure that we can put ourselves in a position of having a meeting definitely every month at a certain day. Let us mull this over.
Okay, Chet, if I may.
You have to.
Yeah.
Just have to have it on the schedule.
Yeah, the point of having a set meeting time is that you're automatically on the town's calendar. And if you want to meet that month or that, at that time, it's much easier to schedule a meeting. It's much easier to put the meeting in the agenda.
I would go along with that, as long as we aren't obligated to meet.
No, not obligated. So all you have to do is let the town clerk know you're not having a meeting, I think. Or maybe you have to let her know you are having a meeting. I guess you think you have to tell her you're canceling if you're not having it, but that's a minor point.
So should we pick a date right now? What day of the month we want to meet?
Yeah, Mondays are good for me. I mean,
Mondays are not good for, not every Monday is good.
Okay, do you have a particular Monday that you like?
I would suggest maybe a Tuesday. That just fits our schedule fine.
Remember, it's only once a month. Chat.
Only would be once a month. So a question to the committee really is, do you want it on a Monday or on a Tuesday? Chet is recommending a Tuesday, at least once a month. Which, if Tuesdays are better, which Tuesday? First, second, third Tuesday? Does anybody have an opinion?
Okay, Tuesdays are a little problematic for me. I'll have to reschedule something I have every Tuesday morning, which I can probably do once a month, reschedule it. So other than that, any Tuesday is same as any other Tuesday for me. Do we?
No from the floor already.
Mary, where's that good microphone?
Gary, you said something. I don't know what that.
I can't hear good.
Propose the second Monday of the month, starting with March.
Okay.
It's the second Monday of the month.
Is good for Gary?
That's great.
That would be all right with me.
So, second, so we're back to Mondays?
The second Monday,
Okay, in the morning
yes,
Let
time?
me check the town calendar.
I suppose, 10 o'clock.
10 o'clock is good.
Okay, I'm sure. I'm about to screw everybody up. Wait, don't sell it yet, because I need to check the town calendar. Hmm. Can you check it? Can you check it? Rita, can you check the town calendar?
Usually on Mondays, there's not much until, 2 p.m. sometimes ASCC.
How about bike and path?
They're on Wednesdays.
Oh,
They're usually first thing in the morning, on Thursday.
okay, we think we have it.
What do we have? What is it? Second Monday?
It's only ASCC that's on Mondays.
Yes, Nan.
Okay, thank you.
Do we need
Okay.
to vote on it?
10 a.m.
Do we need to vote on this second Monday of the month,
10
Uh,
a.m.
10 a.m.?
Okay, so Chad, are you, you're moving that we
Yes,
schedule in the town calendar a meeting for the second Monday of every month at 10 a.m.
Let's have a vote on it.
Okay,
Gary?
have a second. We need a second. Gary?
Everybody in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Sounds as though that's accepted.
Okay, excellent. I think that'll make life easier for
Okay.
scheduling meetings.
I can see that it would. Good.
Okay. Great. Is there anything else to do? Oh, I just wanted to say, we need to get a work plan to the town council. Mary, do you know when we're really supposed to do that? I spoke extemporaneously at the last council.
Nan, she can't hear you.
Oh, really? Am I muted? No? Can you hear me?
muted. I can hear you.
Okay, so we need to submit do we need to submit an official work plan to the town council for the next fiscal year?
I
I
was-
spoke extemporaneously at the last meeting, outlining some, most of the ideas we talked about.
I think that'd be terrific.
Okay, how are
I'll
we?
bring it, it's on the agenda for Wednesday, this Wednesday, because Bob's
Application.
application is in. So I'll take that off the agenda and offer the schedule and the increase in the size of the committee.
But we want Bob to be considered.
No,
Right.
he will be considered.
Okay.
Yeah. So what is okay, so wait, first of all, for the work plan or the priorities,
Hold on.
do we need to submit?
Nan, we people are leaving, so is it
Okay.
okay to?
All right. Do you want to end the meeting? And we'll talk about this. I'll talk offline to Mary.
We need a quorum to adjourn.
Does somebody propose that we end this meeting?
Okay, I move that we adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting's over.
The meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Chet. You did it. You did it. Got us through. Thank you, Bob.
Turn this
Thank
all
you.
off So we can.
Who was saying